Well, and I think it's a good skill for them to see us as badass dads exercise is for us to maybe to take an opposing view and to be able to have a rational conversation. Welcome to the Baddest Dad podcast. KDH here on the microphone in the ironyetistudios under the bright lights with my friend Stephen DeSchryver.
Kevin, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. And, I wanted to talk today. It's so easy for us to click on whether it's social media, which I'm doing a lot of time with, or YouTube. I spend some time on YouTube and just get this confirmation bias and, just keep, friends we hang out with, people, birds of a feather do flock together. But I want to talk about critical thinking and using our mind for more than just storing information. And in particular, our kids and how do we raise our kids and to share. We're definitely going to share our beliefs and our thoughts and everything and our views on things. But how do we get them to, or help them to discover their own as well? And are we going to be okay? What if they have opposing views to us? So this may be a risk for us because I think there are going to be some people are going to listen and they're going to get turned off because, one of the things I want to do is be able to teach my kids to think, not just to regurgitate facts and figures. So.
No, we see it all the time, right? So specifically around critical thinking and confirmation bias, I did an experiment over the past couple of months. I was really upset with, I got emotional, right? About,
Wait, you got emotional?
I did. It was crazy. I got emotional about, just coverage of certain things, specifically around politics and all that stuff. And I started to notice in my Twitter feed, I was getting all of the, the confirmation bias, the reinforcing my opinions, my previous thoughts, all this stuff. And I was like, and I would have conversations with people and I'm like, how do you not know this, right? How do you not know that this happened and that happened and all that? And then I started to really look at it and like, I was just getting the same stuff kind of fed back to me, right? And then I was in that echo chamber. So I created another Twitter account. I created 2 more Twitter accounts, right?
Okay.
One with, and I just followed the opposing. Like, so if I followed CNN, I followed Fox News. I followed Breitbart. And then I created another one where it was just finance. So it was all investing, stockholders, Bloomberg, the whole bit. And it's amazing, Kevin, how much you can get sucked down your own rabbit hole so quickly. Regardless of where I was, I could be led to believe if my only source of information was my Twitter feed, which I believe is more common than we want to admit, that people just read their Twitter feed. You would have believed on one of them that Trump was rightfully elected, there was going to be this coup, all of this stuff. And then on the other one, it was, coronavirus is going to kill us, Biden is going to save us, all this other stuff. It was like mirrored stories. You could just replace like Trump with Biden or whatever. And then the finance thing was just, there's nothing else going on in the world but finance. And I'm going to admit that I got stuck in that one and I loved it because I could just, put blinders on and just focus on investing.
Yeah.
So it is very easy to lose our skills of critical thinking. And I think that I think we've lost a certain part of our ability to step away from certain things dispassionately, judge the system based upon facts and figures and data, and come to our own conclusions. I think we're being fed our conclusions right now. So I went down a rabbit hole.
No, that's good. But I want to ask you a question on that. Why was it emotional to you?
Because you click on your emotions, right? So somewhere along the line, I clicked on something that fed my emotions, that fed a preconceived idea that got me angry. So I got more of that because I clicked on it because it made me angry. And then I found, I'm doing this to myself. I'm literally hitting myself in the head with a sledgehammer. And I'm blaming everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just, you need to step away.
Was there something that like struck you that go, holy crap, what am I doing? Like, what caused you to step back and be able to go, wait, maybe it's not the blue pill or the red pill. Maybe
conversations with people in the morning. Like, so I would have conversations with certain people like, oh, did you read this? Did you, blah, 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 Trump's awful or whatever it was. And I would just hear that back from like one of my office mates. And then when my other office mate walked in, we'd both shut up. was like, wait a second. like if my thoughts and beliefs are well grounded and I believe that my thoughts are correct and my opinions are right, why would I shut up?
Yeah.
Why would I not want to share and learn?
Yeah.
And then so I started, like I said, I changed it and I shifted it.
Yeah.
And I checked both pretty regularly, and I found out that there are 2, 3, 4, 50 sides to a story. And it really depends on the writer, who can shape how you see something. The hypocrisy is really getting to me now, because now you see the hypocrisy on every side.
Both sides.
On every side.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
and and it's so crazy because it doesn't matter if you are more left-leaning and you're this, or you're more right-leaning and it's that, or you're a Christian and then it's that, or it's atheist and I'm this, or, it doesn't really matter, that confirmation bias and that the blinders that can go on, and you feel there's a righteousness of belief that comes up. And, it's a little bit, on the previous episode, we talked about Maxwell Maltz and the ideas and actions that we believe, like we can't see anything outside of it. Once we see, the story of the cave people, the people that are in the cave and all they see is, from the sunlight outside, and they see shadows, but they're too afraid to go outside. And, because they think it's a big bad monster. And what they don't realize is, it's just some other people that were out there, and there are other views. And in critical thinking, we really do have to learn to use our mind. What I've noticed, I'm going to go all the way back in the day when I was in college. I went to Oklahoma, so I went to a big university, and I took a class. It was philosophy of religion at a big public university. And I remember some organizations and groups that I was a part of really tried to prevent me from taking such a class, because what they noted, now I have the term for this now, didn't know the term before, but it was called the deconstruction. And it was the deconstruction of many Christian faiths came about because of this class. And it caused people to question what they had grown up believing. And, maybe I'm just enough of a rebel that if you tell me I can't do something or I shouldn't do something, I'm probably going to do it. And it was so great, and I think that's one of the benefits of, psychology classes, philosophy classes, even religion classes, is to really just challenge the way that we think. And actually what it did for me was it helped me to defend my faith even better. And I think this is important. I think this is a skill. And once again, we've done a couple of episodes together, and I am not blaming education at all, because I don't think it's necessarily the classroom. I think people that are in the classroom, they are truly heroes. I mean, I think about how difficult it is now compared to when I was teaching. Oh my gosh, so many things to juggle. But I don't think it's their responsibility per se just to teach critical thinking. They've got, all these tests they're trying to match up to. I think it's our responsibility as badass dads to really start getting in there and working with our kids and teaching them to think, not just regurgitate facts and figures. I think I've said that 3 or 4 times, but that's my take on it. So,
well, no, and it's funny you bring that up. So I mentioned this before, where I grew up, public school system was terrible. So I went to Catholic high school. And the mandatory first class that you have to take, like you don't get an option. They give you, this is your, you have, algebra, you have, whatever. Yep. The one class you had to take was world religions.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't Catholicism.
That's okay. I would not know that.
It blew my mind. I walked in and I was a punk 14-year-old, whatever kid with a lot more hair. And I said, and it was Father Kislik. I'll never forget this. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to learn this. I don't care, Hindu, the Jewish faith. I can kind of see some connections there, Islam, whatever that was. And he's like, this is the most important class you're going to take. And he was amazing. And it wasn't, there was no indoctrination. It was like, this is the origin of religions. This is where it came from. This is how this religion started. This is how this religion, this is what they believe. This is what these guys believe. And it was amazing for me to gain perspective. So I wasn't just in this, Catholic echo chamber of this is what we believe and everybody else is wrong. Because that's not what Catholics believe anyway. But it helped me appreciate and appreciate what I believed. And then I don't want to say defend, but be able to stand up for what I believe. And this is what I believe, and this is why.
Mm-hmm.
ever going to say anything about anybody else's religion because that's you. I'll never, but it gave me so much more perspective walking into conversations so that when I did go to college and I did meet all these people from different faiths, and I could actually have a conversation with them, an intelligent conversation, and share ideas and learn. And if anything, by exposing myself to it didn't, detract me from my religion. It just helped me appreciate everybody else. It's funny you bring that up.
Yeah.
So how do you, so I had it, kind of forced upon me unwillingly at 14.
Yeah.
How do we as badass dads do that for our kids? Like, how do you help them gain more perspective and understand and gain critical thinking and get out of our own echo chamber?
Send them to Catholic school where they take world religion, obviously, is the answer to that question.
I don't know if they're still doing it, but shout out to Notre Dame Catholic
there you
in
go.
Harper Woods, Michigan.
I love it. Well, I think there are a couple of things that we can do. And I'm going to tell you this, at the essence of this is another subject we've talked about in the past, which is, talking to our kids so they'll listen and listening to our kids so they'll talk. And so when subjects come up, whether it could be religion or it could be faith, or it could be a subject that they're reading on, or they hear someone on TikTok or YouTube or, Snapchat, and someone just shares an opposing view, instead of just coming over the top and saying, well, this is how we believe. That's a strategy. Okay. And that's fine. If it's working for you, great. But if not, if you really want to deepen their critical thinking skills, you can start asking questions and just literally I asked Jacob questions. Now, to go a little step further, one of the things that Jacob and I are doing right now is we're not reading the book together, but I'm bringing a phrase or a quote or something from either a different religion, a poet, a philosopher, something that we're studying each week. And, this is going to rub some of my Christian brothers the wrong way. Their fur is going to get ruffled here. But we've talked about some things from the Tao Te Ching. Okay. And it was great. And what I do is I ask Jacob, what do you think about this? Does this make sense? Even though you don't know what this other book or this other belief or this other religion, what does this phrase do for you right here? Do we just totally throw the baby out with the bathwater, or do you go, wow, there's some wisdom here? And then I let him talk. And so I tell you, it is amazing some of the thoughts and the process that he brings up that I do such a bad job, because I start thinking, well, you're only 13, almost 14 years old. What do you know? But then I start realizing the wisdom that he has already is amazing. And then just letting him talk through it. And I tell you, one of the things I'm noticing is the depth of the relationship that's coming between us because of some of these conversations as well.
So how do you begin those conversations? So if he comes to you and says, Dad, whatever, I'm going to use a ridiculous example. The Browns are the best football team ever.
Okay.
So he comes up to you and says something.
Yeah.
Where do you even begin? Like, how do you walk him through that process?
Yeah. Well, so we'll use that. I mean, it's a silly example. We'll use that. So I would ask you, so Jacob, why do you say they're the best? This would be more of a conversation now with Bentley, okay, my 10-year-old. Baker Mayfield's the quarterback. I really love Baker. He could do this, and here are the stats on this, and he would quote all the stats, and he'd start talking about receivers and everything else. But I would literally just start asking him questions about why that's true, or why he thinks that's true. And then I would listen. I would shut up and just listen, as opposed to just coming over the top and going, no, you're a jackass. Obviously, this is the best team, or, do you realize what Tom Brady is, blah, 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 or, Patrick Mahomes, and here's what he's been doing, at Kansas City, and, literally just giving them the space.
I like what you did. I like what you do there, though, because you don't just affirm their statement. You also don't just, deny them and cut them off the knees. One of the things that I found is what you do is you make them they get out of their emotions, right? Because it's very easy to, especially about sports teams, right?
Yeah.
The Spartans are the best team ever. They just lost to UCLA. Thank you very much. That you're having them use evidence to back up their opinions, which only solidifies their thoughts. Because the first time he comes to you, he might not have that information. It's like, because their uniforms are orange.
Right. Yep.
Well, that will help me understand why that has an impact, and so on and so forth. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. And, one of the common themes that we'll hear, especially with dads that have teenagers, is, man, I just can't get them to talk to me. They just won't never say anything, or the phrase in our house is the teenage girl response, which is, hey, so how was your day at school today? Good. That's a teenage girl response, I'm like, okay, well, that's not a conversation and we're not going anywhere with that. So we've got to learn to ask a better question. So even on that, I mean, it's a silly little thing, but when I'll pick the boys up from school, not every day, but when I'll pick them up pretty regular, I'll ask, hey, what was the best part of your day? What was 2 things that were fun today? What was hard? Hey, tell me, was the lunch lady a Karen today again?
I feel so bad for women named Karen. I'm sorry. Or guys named Karen.
Yeah.
People named Karen.
Yes.
I know, but I like what you did there too, because you're also framing it instead of what did you do today? You didn't allow a one-word answer. You didn't and so it's not just a teenage girl thing. Me growing up, fine. Everything was fine.
Yep.
Fine. My mom hated it. So it's not just a girl thing. But I will say this. When you ask those specific questions, you will get the answer you are trying to get. Because we all know how to, when we don't want to engage in those conversations, we all know the questions to ask that will end the conversation. It'll be over and I will have achieved and I will have fulfilled my duty of asking my wife how her day was. But you set them off on a positive note. You've changed their mindset to what was the good thing that happened today?
Yeah.
What was difficult or challenging? And I'm sure the next question, okay, so what are we doing tomorrow based upon the information that you gave me today? Having them walk through that process is walking through a critical thinking process. They're identifying an issue, they're identifying possible variables to that issue, to use a math term for you, and then they're finding a solution. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. And it allows them to verbalize their thoughts. Too often our kids don't know, some of our kids do not know how to do that. They don't know how to verbalize what they're thinking inside.
Yep.
Because they're so emotional. I mean, I don't want to go through teenage years again. I mean, I remember how emotional I was then.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, and giving them the framework, the mental framework is critical.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a good skill for them to see us as badass dads exercise is for us to maybe to take an opposing view and to be able to have a rational conversation. So let's talk about race. Let's talk about religion. Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about coronavirus. Let's talk about. I mean, we might get banned after all this, but let's talk about some of the things that are going on there. And literally, they see us, they hear us, they probably have a pretty good idea what we believe. But as they begin to talk about some of those things, let's say, hey, well, let's consider this: if you were Black growing up in this area, why do you think they would have this view? If someone was, coming from whatever background, being able to share that. Now, I think what's important to understand, and I know I've rubbed some of you you're further the wrong way, but I think it's important for us to have these conversations with them, because if we don't have these conversations with them in the safety of our own home, guess what? They're going to have them some other place. And they're not going to be able to defend what they believe, or they're just going to react and just start, well, you're just a jerk. You're just an asshole. You're just, and then it just comes into name calling, as opposed to seeing from the other person's point of view. Instead, what Stephen Covey teach, instead of just, seeking to understand, seek to understand before you need to be understood from someone.
We absolutely do. And we do it as adults. I don't think you can realistically expect kids to be able to do that without demonstrating how that works. I just had this experience, and it was, to get back to F1. So F1 season is starting back up.
Yep. Come on.
I'm excited. And Lewis Hamilton really kind of turned me off with some of the things that he said. He's the best race car driver that's ever existed. And it had nothing to do with race, but then I was listening to him just today, and he was talking about when he was 12 years old and he was the only Black kid in karting, and some of the stuff he had to deal with. I'm like, I'd be pissed too.
Yeah,
I would be, but that helped every single time. Every time we have the opportunity to expand our current position, we should. Yeah. We absolutely should. But we have to show our kids how to do that as well and get out of our emotions.
Well, I think we'd be greatly remiss if we didn't talk about why people wouldn't do it. Okay. And, the reason why we wouldn't have those conversations or talk about opposing views or anything else is that we don't want to lead our kids down the wrong path, or we don't want to, open the door for the devil or whatever it may be. And I'm going, at some point they're going to get exposed to it. Okay. So what, I was telling you before, one of the reasons why we've opted to, send our oldest, next year will be going to public high school is because I think it's important for him to be exposed to some things now when he's going to be coming home every single day. And I'm going to have the opportunity to have those conversations as opposed to, if he does, go to a big university like I did and then have to be exposed to it then, and he's not coming home to mom and dad to have those conversations.
No, and it's also critical for him to understand that people believe different things. They act different ways, and that's fine. Like, and this is my politics getting into this, but how you behave is fine unless it infringes upon my rights, or the rights of others. So for him to go and see that certain, people dress a certain way, they act a certain way, some people are really ignorant out there, and he's going to have to deal with that.
Yep.
And if he waits until he's 18 years old and at Oklahoma or better, Michigan State University, it's going to be difficult. Yeah. It's going to be tough. And he won't have you there to kind of walk him through that.
Well, I just want to encourage dads, badass dads out there, that let's have these conversations with our kids. Let's have them, have some exposure to it where they're under our roof and we can talk about these things. And, we can, I've shared with you guys before, but, with my boys early on, I shared, what's the most important thing in our family, what's the worst thing you can do in our family? It was lie. We talked about that. And then it took me a couple of years to come up with what's the best thing, because I taught them what's the worst thing, but what's the best? And it was love. And I think one of the best ways for us to love other people is just to listen to them and hear their side, even if it's opposing, even if it rubs our fur the wrong way and it pisses us off, man, okay. And teaching people to have a dialogue. I think that's, there's so much rhetoric and so much talk about, hey, unity. Well, I think the unity really comes from us as men having conversations with one another who maybe have opposing views and going, damn, okay, I don't necessarily have to agree with you. And I'm not giving you an excuse to be an asshole and, come at me, but I'm like, man, let's just have a conversation and let's talk about it, man. Okay. And I see that. So this is how you see this view. This is your point. Okay.
Help me understand. Help me understand. But it has to come from a sense of vulnerability of, I have to assume, and this came from somebody else, I have to assume that you know something that I don't. All right. I have to assume that in everything. And I have to assume that you can teach me something that I don't know. And again, we may not agree at the end, but at least it gives me a little bit more perspective. And hopefully I've been allowed to share my opinion as well, or my thoughts as well, because that's just as important. Otherwise it's just, it's a seminar and I'm just listening.
Okay. So if we haven't lost all of our viewers, we're probably going to lose, people listen, we'll lose them on this. And
no, I think, I think it'll grow.
Here's what's going to happen. You ready? In order to be able to do that, you got to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
In order to listen to someone with an opposing view, you have to have some strength, because the easiest thing to do is to F you, me, and I'm just going to start and I'm going to talk louder than you and, and do that and go, wow. Okay. Not that I have to agree. Okay. No matter how much you decide and you love and you want to persuade to me on two things, ready? That you like mushrooms or sushi. I don't like them.
Sushi's so good.
Dude, it's bait. Okay. That's all right.
I agree.
So I can appreciate it. I understand that you love it, and maybe my palate is not as refined. Okay, I'll try it, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So just because I don't like those things doesn't mean that you're wrong for liking them. That takes strength to be able to do that. That's all I got.
Mic drop.
Mic drop right there. Hey guys, if you did listen, thank you so much. If you hate us, whatever, hit us up on the Instagrams. Leave us a message, leave us a review, all those things. Man, we want to continue to have great conversations. We want to talk about what's going on with dads out there and all the things that are going on, man. This world right now that we're living in, I think it is more important. It is critical right now for badass dads to stand up and be strong and to be teaching our kids how to think during these times right now. And that's it. I mean, it's time for us to be badass dads. Have a badass day. We are out. Hey guys, I wanted to thank you so much for listening to the Badass Dad podcast. We are so excited about what's going on in 2021, and we want to encourage you to connect with us. So you can hit us up on the Facebook or Instagram at BadAssDads _podcast is where you'll find us on Instagram. And if you want to hit me directly, it is KDH at BadAssDads.org. KDH at BadAssDads.org. Man, appreciate you guys. Let's get after it.